joined the Sileightymania podcast. I'm your co-host Nadine Sue, and thank you for being here for episode 2. By my side, I have our sound engineer, Mark Mondoy, and ladies and gents, here is your host, Benson Sue. Welcome, guys.
Hey.
Hi, guys. Are you guys ready? This is episode 2.
I was born ready.
Already. You're I don't want to argue, but okay, maybe you were born ready, but this is episode 2. The season is flying by so quick. Am I right?
Yeah.
I'm always right.
I don't know. I feel like it's not going fast enough. I want to crank these out faster, but you know, we both work full time and we have to work around other people's schedules, and there's a lot of effort put into the editing of all of it. So
I know. Thank you,
Mark. It can only go so fast. Yeah. Thanks, Mark. There's a lot of work, and you know, thank you especially because I'm getting a lot of like positive feedback from people saying how good the audio quality is. So that's just a testament to your abilities and all the hard work that you do.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Putting more pressure on me for these future episodes, but thanks anyway.
Oh, no, you're doing an amazing job.
Today's episode should sound extra good, right?
Yes. We are recording in our brand new studio here. We have a new dedicated podcast studio, and we have all new podcast equipment. And Mark gave me the shopping list of things he wanted me to buy for audio, and I bought it all. So we are almost ready for having guests in the studio. As soon as, things get a little bit safer, we're going to have all our guests at the round table with us here. But today we're actually all in the same room. We got vaccinated.
Yep.
Things are great. Like, yep. I feel good. But can you guys in the audience hear the difference? I hope so. Because that was a lot of money, Mark.
I hope so too.
Okay. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to introduce to you guys our second guest of this season, Ken Gushi. Lives in Montebello, California. He is a professional driver for Toyota Motor North America. Ken's interests include his dog Boba, building cars, fabricating, driving, drifting, sim racing, traveling, and Pokemon Go. What? Ken is not married. Hey, just yet. Nor does he have any kids. Just yet. Ken is the youngest person to compete professionally in the Formula Drift series. He started at the darling age of 16 years old, and he is in his 17th year driving the series. He has never missed a Formula Drift event. Driving series that Ken has competed in include D1 Grand Prix, Formula Drift, US and International, Pikes Peak International Hill Climb, Grid Life, and Final Bout. Ken is a Japanese citizen, but proclaims that he knows nothing about Japan. He is also one of the most mainstream and famous pro drifters we know, okay? So famous that last week, as I was prepping for a newborn baby photo session in my studio, and I was talking to my hair artist, she was talking to me about Ken Gushi. And it was really weird because, I work outside the automotive industry, and I shoot newborn babies. Yet somehow in our conversation, she brought up Ken's name. So, guys.
Did she say, hey, you know that guy, Ken Gushi? Or she just assumed you knew?
No, she asked. Okay. She goes, yeah, do you know that guy? I think his name is Ken Gushi. Do you know him? And she was assuming that I didn't know him. And I'm like, yeah, I know Ken. I've known him for dang, how many years have we known Ken? 20 years?
Yeah.
17 years. I don't know. We've known Ken all of his drifting life. So to close his official profile, Ken was drifting at the age of 16 years old, but couldn't legally drive a car till he was 18. So we need to hear about that story. Well, anyway, Kenjo, welcome to the podcast.
Oh my God, that was actually quite the intro. I'm sure I wrote some of that, but jeez.
There's more. There's more. I didn't even talk about your driving accolades. I mean, this is just...
First of all, can we go back to your the baby shoot?
Yeah.
About the girl who asked.
Okay. It wasn't your baby.
I want more details.
It was not.
That.
Okay, first of all, it's not your newborn baby.
Okay, well, that's off the list, right?
Oh, yeah. She was working on the set of Sarah Choi's new series about her becoming a pro drifter.
Okay. Yep.
and your name came up, and it was just really random. And I'm like, well, a matter of fact, I do know Ken, and a matter of fact, I will see Ken in a couple days here at the studio. So it was really random, and it's like, you're so mainstream, dude. Like, you're so famous that you come up like in random baby shoots, but not because you're
That's so funny.
Not the baby daddy or anything. But
Well, I'm glad I'm not. Who knows? There might be like little kids out there.
Oh my gosh, little Kenshiros.
Yeah, little Kenshiros.
no, I don't think
I'm
so.
just kidding.
I don't think so.
Let's not go there.
Please.
Yeah.
Welcome, Ken. Thanks for
Wow.
being here for the podcast.
No, thank you guys. I think we've actually all known each other for about 20 years, more than 17 years for sure,
Yep.
because I'm 34 now, and I
34?
was about, I think I was like 13 or
34?
14 when I met you guys.
How'd you catch up to us?
How did I catch up to you guys? Yeah, when I met you guys were what, like in your 20s?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. 30? Wow. Oh, my goodness. Ken.
Crazy, huh?
All right, Ken. I really need you to start everything off by telling us the story about that stat. Like, why were you drifting at the age of 16, but you really couldn't drive on the street till you were 18?
Well, actually, I was driving before 16. So I started driving, or started drifting when I was 13 years old.
What?
And that was because my dad and I were watching this. I mean, we all know the anime series, right? Initial D. Like
Yeah.
Takumi delivers tofu. And so we got hooked on it. Coincidentally, he had a Corolla. He had a couple of Corollas, actually. So we took those cars to El Mirage Dry Lake Bed, only because his employee at the time was a dirt bike rider, and he knew, open land that we can take our cars to and drift without getting in trouble or, having the law enforcement get involved. So it was a perfect place for me to start driving. And so, yeah, we went to El Mirage Dry Lake Bed and got hooked on it
Well,
almost immediately.
How'd you reach the pedals? You are not like a tall kid.
I'm not, and I'm still not, unfortunately. But I think at 13, I was tall enough
Okay.
to reach the pedals. Yeah, I wasn't like, I'm not like a midget or anything. But yeah, let's just say I didn't have a hard time seeing over the dash or reaching the pedals.
What car was this?
This was a 1985 Toyota Corolla GTS, or 86 Hachiroku.
Your dad's had so many Hachirokus that I can't even remember which one. Even if you told me, I wouldn't be able to remember which car that was, because he's just like gone through so many Hachirokus.
Yeah, at one point he had 10. So we have this old photo from the San Gabriel shop that he had, and we had, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4 lifts. All of them had his Corollas on it, and then the rest of his Corollas were parked on the ground by the side, and I counted 10 Corollas, and they were all his. Now imagine we had kept all those.
Yeah,
the prices in those cars have just skyrocketed in the past 5, 6
it's
years.
insane.
Actually, even longer
It's
than that.
insane.
Yeah.
It's the same with S13s, but just way more magnified with Hachirokus. You can't even find a GTS anywhere.
No way. Yeah. And if you do, they're either beat up or they cost 30 grand.
Yeah.
Wow.
I missed that shop, Ken. That shop was so fun. Do you remember we got a cat from that shop? There was a stray cat that your dad would feed all the time, and we took him home. Do you remember that?
Really? No, I don't remember
Yeah.
that.
When Nadine and I were dating, she'd always tell me, I want a cat. I want a cat. I'm like, I don't like cats. I don't want a cat.
Yeah.
And, I'd go to the shop, and I forgot which one of the workers, I forgot his name. But yeah, he'd always feed this brown cat. And then I was like, you know what? I really love Nadine. I'm going to give her this cat to her.
This is a true story.
we brought the cat home, and we gave it a bath, and it was orange and white.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think your dad's like, get that freaking cat out of here now. I remember that.
But yeah, I also loved that shop because whenever I'd bring my car to get your dad to work on it, I'd be like, well, you're going to keep my car for a while. Can I borrow a car? And he would just give me a Hachiroku. And it would always be awesome. It's always manual. It always had like some wide Watanabe wheels on it, and it was low. So it was so much fun.
Yeah. And guys, we're talking about Gushi Auto in San Gabriel, California. Was that the first shop your dad ever had?
that was the first shop that he personally opened up.
Yeah.
He closed that shop back in 2005, I want to say,
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6, and then he took over another shop in East LA called Asari Auto.
Yes.
And then he recently sold that shop, and now he retired and bought a house in Apple Valley, which is like
It's
10 minutes
crazy.
away from Grange,
Yeah.
Apple Valley Speedway.
You mean Granger?
Grange. So he's living the high desert life now.
High
That's
desert
crazy.
life. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's funny. Ken, do you know that Asadi is like distantly related to my family?
Which is the
he,
second shop that he bought.
yeah, Asariado. Like Asadi, he owned the property that we lived at, where we lived in the back house. Remember that?
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's all
Really?
connected.
yes. So it's all connected. So he's actually a
Wow.
distant family member of mine. But that's crazy.
The J
What a small
connection.
world.
The J connection. And, like, I want to kind of kick off the questions with this for you, Ken, is, you followed in your dad's footsteps because now you have a shop in Temple City, California called Threes Racing. And I'm so proud of you, by the way. Like, oh my gosh,
Thank
like
you.
little Ken, like when I think of you, I think of like a 16-year-old Ken sitting on my couch, like we're watching, I don't even know what we were watching, option videos,
know,
Initial
anything,
D,
everything.
anything, funny
Yeah.
movies, eating Cheetos. I have no idea, but I just, and now you have a shop and I'm so proud of you. But like, how do you feel about following in your father's footsteps and like what brought you to opening your own shop?
Well, so I had a bunch of tools. I had my Corolla equipment at my dad's shop before he closed. And then obviously when he sold it, we had to take all of our belongings out. So I always wanted to sort of rent like a shop space where I can, I guess, bring all my tools together and just have like a man cave, not
Yep.
necessarily a storefront for customers that's open to the public, but I just wanted a space for myself where I can work on my car in peace, not piss off any other neighbors. And so this opportunity came where obviously this shop space opened up, but it was just too big for me to rent by myself. At the same time, my buddy Ming was about to quit his work at Longo, and he was like, "Hey, let's go check out this space, and maybe we can go on it together." So we came to check it out. Ended up being great, but still, it was kind of too big for just the two of us, also. So I asked my buddy Bobby if he wanted to get in on it, and so it was just like the perfect spot and the space for three of us. And I claimed one corner of the shop space, and they took over the rest for general maintenance, side projects and whatnot. So came to look at it. A week later, we had the keys, started moving everything in. So I didn't actually intend on opening a shop front, but it just turned out to be that way. And now that we're here, I mean, yeah, like you said, I'm following my dad's footsteps, but it was you just never know what happens in life, I guess. That's what I'm trying
Yep.
to say is
Yeah.
things can happen so fast, and now I'm here.
And it always works out, right? I mean,
It does, yeah.
it's
There's a lot of
weird.
challenges that I've seen and that I've faced, but at the end of the day, I feel like everything just works out.
Yep. It was meant to be. That's my motto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. How big is that shop, by the way?
Our shop space is 2,400 square feet. We have a huge office area, lounge area, and then obviously the shop space in the back. But at the time being, we have one lift and a ton of space, a ton of open space. My GR Supra is here. My competition car is also here. It used to be at Gretty Performance in Irvine, but the drive out there was pretty bad. I mean,
Yep.
pre-pandemic, it was about 2 hours in traffic one way. So I was just getting really tired of that drive. And also, I didn't have the leisure to stay as late as I wanted to work
Right.
on the car. So it was just perfect to bring the car here and work on it on my own time and my leisure.
Nice.
So you started talking about when you first started drifting that you were around a bunch of Hachirokus.
Mhm.
But when I first met you, I remember the first time I saw you was I was driving down Huntington Drive in Arcadia in my Sileightymania. And then this champagne, like slammed to the ground coupe drove by with a video option sticker on the windshield. You know, the one that went across the windshield?
Yeah. It says v-op.co.jp.
Yeah. I'm like, no one knows what that is. Who the heck was that guy? But, you know, I did the head turn and I was like, what the heck was that? You know? So that was the first time I saw you. And then, you know, for the longest time you were driving that car, you know, you were competing in it and you learned how to drive in it. And so it was funny because I always knew you as like a Nissan guy because of that car. You loved that car. And the whole time under the surface, you were always a Toyota guy. You were always a Hachiroku guy. And so that kind of threw me for a loop. But I remember you let me drive your dad's Hachiroku at one of the drift days. And I was driving it all wrong because I was an S13 guy, right? I was driving it like an S13 and it was not right. And you're like, no, you have to be more aggressive. You have to, you know. And then I listened to you and I did it. And then I fell in love all over again with drifting. But that was just one of my early memories. I wanted to share that with you in case you didn't know. But it taught me a lot about driving. That's an experience that I think like every drift driver needs to have, is drive a Hachiroku and learn how to drive that.
Yeah, I mean, till this day, when people ask me, you know, what's the proper way to learn how to drift, I tell them, get something that's severely underpowered. And, you know, at the time when we were first starting, Corollas were more abundant and relatively affordable. But now they're, you know, you can't even find them anymore. So I wouldn't say, you know, you go find a Corolla and start drifting. But yeah, it's the concept for me has always been the same. You know, start an underpowered car. Don't rely on power or, you know, hydraulic handbrakes or lock kits. That way it teaches the fundamentals of, you know, drifting. And then learn the dynamics of how the car moves instead of relying on hydraulic handbrakes and, you know, all the tools that we all see nowadays in modern drifting. But to go back to your story about the first time you saw me on stuff, that's so funny because I remember seeing your webpage, your blog, your Sileightymania blog, and I've seen like the pictures where you're drifting on Azusa Canyon and even the videos. I was like, oh my God, that's like what I want to do. and funny enough, you were actually the inspiration to why I went to a Nissan in the first place. Because if it wasn't for you, I would have stuck with Corollas probably forever.
Oh, I made you stray.
Yeah.
You cheated on Toyota for me.
Oh,
well,
that's so touching.
That's cool. You never told me that. That's really interesting. Your car was cool.
Oh yeah, it was cool. Don't get me wrong. Like I was pretty happy with my S13, but
but also for how early you had it, it was really cool. You know, it's hard to have style back then because it's hard to get parts and, you know, but your car was always really cool. It was cool early on.
Well, it was only S13 coupe slammed on 17-inch Watanabes.
Yeah, were they 17s?
Yeah, 17s.
They were the 3-piece ones.
And what color was your interior?
Champagne.
You love that brown interior.
Your interior brown. Yes.
You love that brown interior.
I did. Till this day, I tell people my favorite color is brown. Thanks to that car.
That's awesome.
Oh, thanks for sharing that, Ken. That was really touching.
Yeah.
Benson's like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, now everyone needs to know my name.
Benjo.
Benjo.
The story behind Benjo's name. How did we even come up with that?
I don't know. It was either you or Dai. It was one of you guys. Benjo. One of you jerks. So since we're on the subject of, you know, way back when, can you paint a picture for the audience and let us know what the world was like when you were first getting into drifting?
Well, when I was first getting into drifting, I was still a high school student. And I remember talking to my friends or classmates at Don Bosco Tech, because that's where I went to high school for 2 years. And they're like, oh, you know, when are you getting your license? I'm like, oh, I'm going to try to get it so early, like 15 years old. I'm going to get my permit. And then I'm going to drive my S13 to school. And they're like, S13? What's that? So I had to kind of explain to them like what an S13 chassis was, these chassis codes, you know, A86, FC3S, FP3S, R32. Are those numbers, math, cars? What are you talking about? So I explained the whole thing. And, you know, nowadays people know what those numbers and letters mean. But back then, no one knew the JDM culture. They didn't know what drifting was. And so it was kind of hard to relate to these kids because I was the only like nerd that knew about, you know, Initial D, these cars, and everyone else was like, oh, Honda Civic this, Honda Civic that.
Yep. That's what was popular.
Yeah, I think this was right when Fast and Furious came out too. So the Supra was popular, but there was no one that was into Corollas and
Right.
S13s and stuff. So uh, that was where I grew up in a society where no one was like relatable, I guess.
Except for us old guys, huh?
Yeah, that's why I looked up to you guys. That's why you guys were my friends, because my
Hmm.
high school friends were not cool enough.
Yeah, you hung out with the older crew for sure.
I did, but I felt cool because I hung out with old people.
Oh, you made us feel younger.
I always remember your dad would always go out of his way to thank me for keeping you out of trouble. And I was always like, Ken wouldn't get into trouble. He's like, no, because of cars, because you like hang out with him all the time. I know you guys are good and I don't have to worry when he's with you guys. I'm like, come on.
That's true
Forgot
though.
about that. I
Yeah.
remember that. Your dad is so gracious all the time, Gushi-san.
Yeah,
So
he is.
sweet.
Shout out to Gushi-san.
Yeah.
hi Dad.
I mean, he's crazy.
He is crazy.
Hey, Ken, you know,
Yeah.
the more we see you year after year, the more you look like your dad.
Oh.
You
Oh
realize that?
yeah,
You hear that all the time,
Yeah.
right?
I do. Actually, I was just recently. So my sister sent me a photo on my phone. I was like, "What the heck? What am I doing with? Who is this girl?" It ended up being my mom and my dad when they were like 19.
Wow.
But I looked.
Oh.
I thought it was me. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yep.
when did I take this? Like, who the hell is this
Yep.
girl?
Yep.
It was my parents.
Your mom's DNA got robbed. It was like, there's no, you look just like your dad.
Yeah, even my
Well-
sister looks like my dad.
No, but Ken, your dad looks like he's Persian, kind of. And you don't. You don't. So
This is true. This is true.
Yeah, everyone thought that my dad was either like Mexican or half Mexican, half
Yeah.
Asian, or like Persian. I've never heard Persian.
oh.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Persian. It's that Okinawan
Mm.
blood there.
It's so funny because my mom looks like full on Japanese.
Yeah, like
I
Tokyo.
look like normal Japanese. My sister looks kind of mixed, but my dad looks entirely foreign,
He
not
does.
even Asian.
I actually have the same exact story with my dad. My mom showed me a picture, and he's wearing his army uniform when he was in the U.S. Army. I was like, why am I wearing a U.S. Army outfit? But I look exactly the same as my dad when he was younger.
Yeah. Well, at least you know that.
I know who
That's
my
the real
dad
dad.
is.
Yes.
Oh, this is good confirmation.
You
Okay.
also know what you're going to look like when you're 60 years old. So.
I know. What's to come? Just look at him. Okay. I like it.
So I have some funny stories about Ken when you were really young hanging out with us. I don't know how much you remember from when you were young, but you were always around and you were always a lot of fun because you were just, you were silly Ken. And like one of my favorite trips with you was, I don't know, we went to Vegas for something. And I think we went drifting there for something. Maybe there was a drift in Vegas. And I remember like the whole trip there. I don't know if people remember, but you know that drink Snapple?
Yeah.
The caps would have
The
like
G?
trivia on the
Facts.
bottom. Yes.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you were obsessed with them. And the
I was?
the whole way to Vegas and back, you were just like, hey guys, did you know that? And then you would tell us a Snapple fact.
Yeah, it's from the Snapple cap. Like you take off the cap and you look under the cap and there's some.
Yeah.
And
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and what else? I remember you were hungry at the hotel and all we had was red vines, but you wanted something cooked. So you were cooking the red vines on the stove.
Oh my God.
You don't remember any of this?
Wow. I remember the Snapple facts because
Okay.
I mean I still love facts and weird trivial shit, but I don't know, but I didn't remember about the red vines, but
Yeah. And
yeah.
and then on the way back, there was a ton of traffic on the 15 and you had to go to the bathroom. And we're like, dude, there's no rest stops nearby. So you're like, just stop the car. And I stopped the car and you ran out and, we're passing by farms, right? And you jumped the fence of this farm and you ran down the property of the farm to like this random porta potty that they had. I don't know. Do
Really?
you remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, you jumped
No,
the
I don't
fence.
remember that
I
at
remember
all.
that.
And then we started moving. I was like, dude, hurry up,
You
Ken.
know what? I think maybe it wasn't Vegas. I think we were coming back from Camarillo. And
It was
you know how you
far.
have to pass the farms on the way home from Camarillo? I'm not
I
sure,
don't
but
know.
it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is Ken likes to pull over and use other people's porta potties
Yep.
on their farms. So yeah, just saying. We got you,
Well,
Ken.
at least I didn't piss on the side of the road or something.
This is true. If it was your dad,
That's true.
he would.
That was very decent of you to jump someone's fence and use their bathroom.
Imagine doing that nowadays, though. That's like,
Might get
I
shot.
could have been shot.
Yep.
Shocked electric fence or something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So that's what it was like. You were telling us about your friends and how they weren't really into drifting. You had already been drifting at El Mirage with your dad, right?
Yeah. And then in my sophomore year of high school is when I got the S13, the Champagne Brown Interior S13. So I was 14 years old. And then I remember at the end of the school year, we got let out early. So then I went home, but then a couple of my friends were at school and they called me like, "Hey, did you go home already? Like, I need a ride." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm already home." They're like, "Oh, do you think you can sneak out your cool S13 and like pick us up?" So I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, my parents aren't home. Like, I had the keys to my car, and of course, I didn't have a license because I was still 14. But I ended up taking the car out, drove back to Don Bosco, picked up my friends, and dropped them off at home. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever, just
And you didn't get
driving
caught.
around. I didn't get caught that time.
That
There's more
time.
stories, yeah, with that car. But I do remember one time I did get caught by my dad's customer. And he was like, "Hey, I saw your son driving his car on the road." And my dad was like, "What? He doesn't have a license. What do you mean you saw him driving?" He's like, "Oh yeah, he was just like, driving on Las Tunas or something." So then I get a call from my dad, and I was just chilling at the park in San Gabriel. I think it was called Smith Park or something,
Yeah.
with my friends. And as soon as I saw dad on myself, I was like, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble." So then I picked it up and he's screaming like, "Where the hell are you? What the hell are you doing? Someone told me that you're driving the car around." Like, no, it's my friend driving the car around. I wasn't driving. He's like, "Get that car home right now. There's no insurance on it." So then I asked my friend who was with me, like, "Hey man, sorry, do you think you can drive me and my car home?" So then he drove me and my car home, and then that was it. So I got scolded for that, but at least I didn't get caught by law enforcement that time.
That time.
That
You,
time.
you got into trouble with that car.
I did. So then another time, one of my dad's customers had asked him if I can possibly teach him how to do, drifting and donuts. So then one night he picked me up in his like a S13 hatch,
Hmm.
and then he took me to this parking lot in City of Industry. So then he was like showing me what he could do. I was like, no, you're doing it all wrong. Watch. I'll teach you how to do it. Let me show you. So then I hop into his car. The moment I do one donut, a cop pulls in, lights blasting,
Oh,
sirens
no.
blasting, and then he like almost slams into a car, gets out of the car, has this gun drawn. He's like, "Get out of the car, put
Wow.
hands up." So I'm like,
Yep.
"Oh shit." So I'm like, "This isn't my car. It's his car." Like, license and registration. I don't have a license. So then I get busted off. Of course, I get a ticket, but the ticket was like unlicensed driver, no insurance. He didn't have insurance apparently. Past curfew,
Oh man.
trespassing.
What time was this?
This was like at 10 at night. Yeah. Reckless endangerment. So I got like hit with everything. Had to
He
go
was
to
having a bad
court.
day, that cop.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. So then when that happened, my dad got so mad at him. He's like, "You told me this was like a private lot. You got my son in trouble. Now he has to go to court." So we get to court, and the fee's like $2,000 or something.
Oh my
And then they
gosh.
take away my driving privilege for a couple of years.
They really got
Wait.
you. They made an
Yeah.
example of you.
That was the
Yeah.
one that prevented you from getting licensed till you're 18?
No, that was the first offense.
Okay,
Oh,
I was gonna
yeah,
say,
yeah.
I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
remember another
Yeah.
one.
Folks,
Yeah.
we're only getting started.
The second
right.
one was actually this was after the whole D1 driver search. You and I both did that, Benson.
Yeah.
And then we started getting sponsors. So I was driving for a team called Rotora. Remember Rotora?
Yep.
Yeah.
Rotora Brakes. So then they were building a car so we can compete in D1 USA. So when the night that we finished the car, Lauren, the owner, was like, "Oh, okay, now we need to test it somehow." But then we had nowhere to test it because the event was supposed to be, a couple days later. They're like, "Oh, don't worry." I told him, "I'll just take it on the block or something and, feel it out. I won't do anything crazy." Well,
You
my
won't do
dad happened to
anything
be there
crazy.
too because he had helped us finish the car. So I take the car out of the parking lot, and this was in City of Industry also, but the street was like there was a main street, but
Mm-hmm.
then the office was like in a not it wasn't cul-de-sac, but it was a street that connected from one end to the other.
Yeah.
And there's
It's like a
like
little
two
curve.
90-degree corners, like
Mm-hmm.
two corners. So I take out the car out of the lot and like, drive it around, and I would do like a donut on the other end, drift a 90-degree corner, do another like manji, drift another 90-degree
Oh my
corner,
God,
and like I'll
nothing
do a donut.
crazy.
Yeah,
Nothing
nothing
crazy.
crazy, right? So I
Oh.
do another donut. I'm like, okay, car feels good. And as I'm getting ready to go back to Rotorua, lights flash behind me. I'm like, oh
Oh
shit, not
God.
again. So I'm like putting this like race car. It's all like fully stickered out, super loud
Oh
built
no.
SR with like a Blitz turbo at the time.
Is that
So
the
I'm like
blue
putting
one? Is
the
a
blue
blue
one,
car?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like putting back to Rotorua. As soon as I pull into the parking lot, the cops like blocking my car, gun drawn. And my
Mm-hmm.
dad's like, whoa, 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 relax. He's like, get away, move away. And my dad's like, that's my son. He's like, I don't give a get
Oh
away.
man.
So I'm just like, oh crap, here we go
Daddy,
again.
Daddy, save me.
So then yeah, he gets by my car, and my dad's like, he doesn't have a license. He's like, what?
Oh
What? Why
my
are you guys
God.
letting him do this? Yeah. So then of course I get another ticket, and then again it's reckless endangerment, reckless
Yep.
driving, no license, no registration, no insurance.
Oh God.
Yeah, so I get hit again. So that was the bigger offense that took away my driving privilege. So I was actually 19, not even 18.
Okay.
So funny story is I couldn't even drive to college. I couldn't
Yep.
take girls out on
I
dates.
remember.
My mom had to drive me to school. My mom had to go help me pick up my, the dates. And then my dad had to like drive us to like the movie theaters
Yep.
and dinner. It was so embarrassing.
And to add on top of that, you were a competitive drift driver. Like you were doing well in your competitions, but you couldn't drive on the street.
Yeah. Yeah, I was competing in not Formula D. This was still D1 Grand Prix. Yeah, I was a sponsored athlete driving for these different automotive manufacturers with no license. That wasn't the worst part, actually. I would have been okay with that. The worst part was not being able to drive, girls on the dates. That was
Yep.
really, really embarrassing.
They would drive you. You guys would sit in the back seat or like.
Well, I remember there was a couple times, well, actually, there was a lot of times where I would have to like ask my dad, "Hey, Dad, do you think you can, drive me to, so and so's house, pick her up, and like drop us off at the mall or something?"
Yep.
So I was like, yeah, whatever, because he understood, like he's not gonna say no. What is he gonna say? Like, no, you take the car. But he would drive us, and I remember just sitting in the front seat, like all like twiddling my fingers, and then the girl in the back seat was just like chilling, and then like she would like put her hand over my shoulder, and I was just like, okay, I'll hold your hand, and like I would hold
Oh
her
my
hand.
God.
Yeah, so now that I think about it, my dad would have like been so embarrassed to drive his son around on a date. Like if I had a
Oh.
son, I would not be able to do that. I'd be like, you know what, son, just take the car.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so too.
I think your
yeah.
dad's learned his lesson for letting you have keys to a car.
Yeah, so I remember how ecstatic I was when I first got my
I remember.
license.
I remember.
Yeah.
But there was another incident that I remember. I think.
My gosh, more?
Yeah, I think this incident you got away with. It's hard for me to remember, but do you remember working at Alta?
I was gonna get there.
I was there at Alta all the time. I was there when this
Yeah.
happened. But
You want to explain Alta?
yeah, so Alta was a used wheel shop in Japan. They had like several stores all over Japan, and they decided, for whatever reason, they thought there was a market here, so they opened one here in the
Well,
U.S. in Southern California.
Correction. One guy thought there was a market here.
That's right, Ken. That's right. Ohara-san convinced them to allow him to open up here. That's right.
Yeah, but he couldn't use the name Alta, so they had to use alteration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hung out there all the time, especially after
Yeah.
I got laid off and I had nothing to do. So I was there all the time. I was helping them mount wheels and tires and like just hanging out and stuff. And then you started working there.
hmm
Okay. And then why don't you tell us the story?
Okay, so I was a junior in high school, and then Ken Ohara, who was the owner and operator of Alteration, was pretty close to my dad because my dad's shop was literally down the street from Alteration or Alta. And so my dad hung out there all the time too because he found Ken was like just as crazy as he was
He was
and
Yes.
had
crazy.
a
Oh,
huge
yeah.
love of cars and drifting. He had this old FA22C RX-7 or
Yep.
first gen
Yep.
RX-7 that he likes to putt around town. But then my dad asked him like, "Hey, like, do you think my son can work here? You know, you can just pay him like I don't know, $20 a day or something." So then I
20
was like,
bucks.
so then they're like, "Oh yeah, Ken, hey, you're gonna work here now." Okay. So then my dad was like, "I'm gonna pick you up from school and then drop you off, and you can work here from like, 2 to close or whenever." So I started working there, and I was doing all the wheel polishing, and then the bent wheels that came in, I would have to like hammer it and fix it. But the process was really cool because, I mean, obviously as a 16-year-old kid, like working at some place like this was like a huge dream, working with JDM wheels and whatnot. But also because he would let me drive his RX-7 around town, and whenever he made like crazy modifications to it, he's like, Ken, go test it out, Ricky, go test it out.
Oh my
And by the
gosh.
shop, there was this like one dead end street that you make a right into, and there was like a left turn, 90
Yeah.
degree corner, and then like a dead end. And so you do a donut and come back and take the right turn and then go back to Valley
Yep, Valley.
and to the shop. But anyway, one time I decided to like show off because one of the customers came and was like, "Oh, I want to ride, give me a ride." So I asked, Ken O'Hara, I was like, "Hey, can I borrow your car real quick and show him what drifting is all about?" He's like, "Yeah, go ahead, take it." My dad just happened to get there at the same time as I was leaving.
Oh
And then
no.
so then we're driving down, and then I do the first corner, I complete it, and on the way back, I turn around. I had way too much speed, but then not only that, there was like a drainage in the middle of the road, and there was water on there.
Oh no.
So then I kicked the clutch really hard and aggressive, and instead of like drifting a corner, I just went straight onto the curb and hit a pole. So it hopped the
Oh
curb and
my
like it
gosh.
hit a wooden pole, and then the wheels were all like jacked up. It looked like a hovercraft on one end. So we're like, "Oh shit!" the guy next to me was like, that's not supposed to happen." I'm like, no, we gotta get out of here. We gotta get out of here. And there's like all these people like working in that area, like, "What the hell? That's what you guys get. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna have to pay for that.
Oh
We're
my
calling the
gosh.
cops." So then we run back to Alta, and then my dad's just like chilling. I'm like, Dad, I just crashed. He's like, "What? Where's the car?" I'm like, "It's still broken on the street." He's like, so he like gets in the car, like rushes back to his shop, gets a truck, and goes to the car and like basically drags the car
Yep.
Yeah.
back to Alta.
Yep.
And then as he gets there, the cops come to the shop,
And he took the
and
blame
so
for
my
you,
dad
right?
had to take the blame. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
Before
that.
the cops
Oh.
came, he was like, "Go home." So
Yeah.
then the guy that
Oh,
was
yeah,
there
that's
that I
right.
gave a ride to drove me home to
Yeah.
get out of the scene, and then my dad took the. Yeah, sorry, Dad. I mean,
You know,
thanks, Dad.
I don't blame you though, because like you said, Ohara-san, he was crazy and like he was down for
Yeah.
anything. And I think he was used to life in Japan where maybe some of this stuff would fly. But yeah, I remember because Alta was on near a four-way streetlight, and he would hear me come down Temple City Boulevard
Uh-huh.
because you could see like down the street. So he would
Yeah.
see me come, and they would, I kid you not, every time they heard me, they would stop what they're doing and like watch me and egg me on to drift and like drift the intersection and into the driveway.
Oh
and
my gosh.
and then every time, if I was there and they had a customer there, Ohara-san was like talk to the customer and say like, "Oh yeah, this guy he drifts," and they would always tell me like when I'm leaving, do something, right? And so he'd always make me drift like leaving that place.
He made you, huh?
Well, I
Make
mean,
you
I
drift.
liked it, but I mean, you get in trouble that way. Someone's always egging you on.
Yeah.
Well, so you really showed that guy what drifting's all about.
Or what it's not about.
Yeah. Oh.
Maybe we weren't a good influence on you.
Yeah, I don't know what my dad thought.
Well, his dad has different standards. We were a good influence.
I
It's
think you
good.
guys were a great influence.
Oh, see, we were good. Thank you, Ken. Thank you.
You turned out great, Ken.
I think I'm all right.
Thank you for watching over my son. Now let me go get my truck and drag the RX-7 that he crashed a mile back.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Good times. I actually miss that shop. That's
I do
why.
too.
It's
Me
another
too.
car shop now, but
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
memories there.
If the walls in that shop could talk.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness.
You know, I was at the sheriff's station for something. I forgot. It was something innocent, like maybe getting a permit for something. And then I was standing there waiting. And then Ohara-san came out of,
Of
of
holding.
jail. And he was like walking down the hallway. He's like, what are you doing here? And he looked all messed up, like he spent the night in jail. And I won't talk about what he did, but I gave him a ride home, and he
He
was
had a plastic bag, right?
Yeah,
Like,
he had a
with all his
plastic bag with
stuff.
his stuff in it. And he was he was always really nice to me, but from then on, I was like really special to him or something. And he'd be so nice, extra nice to me, and he would like give me stuff. And he gave me an Alta jumpsuit with the the Japanese logo on it.
Yeah.
So I really like that thing. I wear it to the track when it's not too hot. But
Oh,
good times.
good times.
It's so funny.
Oh,
Anyway,
jeez.
that's just
Yeah.
the kind of person he was.
Yeah, he was wild.
I'm not shocked that he came out of jail walking like that.
Oh. And now let's take some time out to thank this episode's sponsor. Koyo Rad Racing was established in 1999 in Japan and made their U.S. debut in 2004. The parent company of Koyo Rad Racing, Koyo Radiator, was actually founded in 1956. Koyo Rad Racing is actually distributed right here in Orange County, California. They're known for their high-quality aftermarket radiators, oil coolers, and manufacture over 80 different Japanese, domestic, and Korean vehicle models. Koyo uses only Japanese-made equipment and sources only the finest aluminum when producing their radiators. What we love the most about Koyo is their all-aluminum extruded tube and fin FC Universal Oil Cooler. I am so excited because I'm going to get one on my car, and Benson's actually going to get it for me. He doesn't know about it.
I don't know if everyone knows about those FC oil coolers, but back in the day when it was like a DIY thing, you would go, just like it is to go get like a front mount intercooler from a car that came with one, you would want to go find an FC in the junkyard and get that oil cooler. Just because it had a unique shape that's really long, and so you can put it really cool places where it would just really stand out. So that's awesome that they're making that. Koyo's always been around in Japan supporting the coolest cars. I always remember Hibino's Hachiroku, or you remember that Super Autobox R34 that was here driven by Takatori, or Naoki Nakamura's S13 and S15, that D-Max Koyo car. They've always sponsored the coolest cars. So I feel like Koyo is part of the culture that we enjoy, not just, this manufacturer that's out there. They know what's cool and they sponsor what, all the stuff that I like, including like the grassroots events like Final Bout and Super D.
I've actually been lucky enough to say that Koyo has been a very, very long time supporter and sponsor of mine. In fact, I've had a Koyo radiator in every single personal car that I've owned. My first S13, in fact, that one I was sponsored by Koyo, so I got that one for free. I've had a Koyo radiator in my AE86 Corolla before it was SR, and then when it turned SR, I got another Koyo radiator for an S14, put that in the 86. I've had a Koyo radiator in my FRS, and now I have one in my IS300. So there's no other radiator brand that I would put my trust into cooling as far as engine cooling goes. So it's a name that's synonymous in automotive cooling in motorsports, for me at least personally, and of course a huge name that's been around in Japan for a long time. So major thanks to them for being a huge part of motorsports and in my personal career.
I agree, and I've been sponsored by them. I guess I still am sponsored by them, but regardless of that, I would and I have bought Koyo radiators for all of my cars, and I wouldn't buy a different brand. That is the one radiator I would buy. And I have the utmost trust in their quality and performance.
Yep. And Koyo Rad Racing has provided us with an oil cooler kit, which we will be giving away over on our Instagram account at Sileightymania. We'll launch that giveaway a couple days after we release this episode, so look out for that. And special thank you to Koyo Rad Racing for sponsoring this episode of the Sileightymania podcast. And with that said, let's get back to grilling Ken.
So Ken, we've talked about your early years drifting as an amateur. We didn't really cover the competitions, but let's get into your professional career. As a driver, you started your professional career already with a full car from Rotorua. You discussed that recently. You got into a Ford Mustang sponsored by Ford, and you did pretty well in that Mustang. And since then, you've gotten into a car by Scion and Toyota. Did you ever think that that was your future as a teenager at Don Bosco Tech, that was something that would happen for you?
So looking back at when I was, obviously nerding out with drifting as a high school student, I didn't quite picture myself being a professional athlete in drifting, only because at the time there was no premier, drifting motorsport that was, professionally sanctioned. So it was hard to picture and imagine what the future of drifting would look like. But I did know for certain that I would stick around drifting and motorsports in one way or another. Now, whether that meant being, like a advocate for drifting or, some sort of athlete for motorsports, I didn't know. But I knew that I was going to stick around drifting for a long time. And now that I look back, I guess I always knew that I just wanted to do something with it and, make it a career. And, now that I have made it a career, yeah, it's that high school Kenshiro Gushi's dream come true. And I guess I was able to fulfill it.
So you've had a very long career in drifting. What did you say, 17 years?
Yeah, Nadine in her introduction did mention that I haven't missed a single event, which is true. Till this day, I have not missed a single Formula Drift event since 2004.
Are you the only one?
No, I'm not. It's myself, Daijiro Yoshihara, and Chris Forsberg. I would
awesome.
include JR into the list, except he did miss one Irwindale. I think it was back in 2016.
Well, you can include him
because
then.
It's just three of us.
Perfect attendance.
The sad part is there's a really sad part to that story. The sad part is, out of the three drivers, I'm the only one that hasn't got a championship. The closest I got was second place in 2015.
So that brings me into my next question is, I remember what it was like in the early days of Formula D when I was doing it with you. And I remember that feeling when everything was new and I only had one season of professional drifting, whereas you've had 17. Does it ever get old?
No. For sure, it does not get old, only because I feel like as a driver and an athlete, there's always something I can improve on. There's always something I can do better, whether it's consistency, whether it's, doing something that's never been done before. Like back then, we didn't have like crazy lock kits, so it's almost impossible to do a backwards angle entry into any other corners. But things have become so far advanced now in terms of, parts that are available. The know-how, the data, and even the community online that tries to help each other out. But with that evolvement of the sport, there's always something new that we can do. And that doesn't just have to do with driving, but with, car builds, specifically with drifting. So, steering Ackerman, steering geometry, suspension travel, suspension geometry, everything. And so in that sense, it never gets old. Till this day, I enjoy trying new things at professional Formula Drift events, and I also enjoy the progression of other drivers and seeing the sport kind of get crazier and crazier. I wouldn't say it's growing at the same rate that it was back when we were competing together, but it's definitely still growing. Every year at the first round, I always find myself saying, "Wow." It's just crazy how different it is from just this year to the last final round last year.
If I can get into it quick. that first year of Formula D, Benson, your only season, was the very first season of Formula D in existence. And Ken, like, you're what, 18 at that time, right? Everything absolutely exploded in that scene at that time. Like, everything was new to everybody. And just the thought of being a professional drifter was just amazing in itself. But that whole scene it started at a level that was just unprecedented in motorsports. So, you guys have any kind of memories of just the insanity of what it was like competing on a professional stage for the first time in the US?
I remember that we were all in over our heads. It felt like we were like no one really had done this before, right? And because we didn't have the guys from D1 who's been doing this for years, show us the way. It was Slipstream that started Formula D, and it was their very first season. And I don't think that they did any competitions before that first season. So not only were they holding that for the first time, they were making rules as they went. And, us drivers had to figure out real quick, one day you're an amateur, now you're doing Formula D. Now you have to find over $10,000 to be able to compete, and you have to make your car competitive, and you had to learn how to be professional. And there were no classes. No one told us how to do that, and we were all kind of just learning as we went. And I think a prime example of that, Ken, is that very first round of Formula D Atlanta.
I was going to bring this up.
So, Ken, you made it into the top 16, and you were in the very first ever Formula D top 16 competition run. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I qualified first in that round.
Yeah, so I was going to tell the fireworks story, but I think you should tell the fireworks story.
Yeah. So then, yeah, you're right. This is our very first Formula Drift Pro competition round in Road Atlanta. And I was out there with my sponsored Rotora S13, qualifying first, having a great time. In the
Awesome,
weekend.
by the way.
Yeah. And then here comes the top 16 tandem competition. And, we're lined up to start, and I'm leading first because I qualified higher. And as soon as I start getting ready to initiate, boom, I hear these crazy loud explosions. I'm like, holy shit, what happened? I slam on all the brakes, lock up the handbrake, and go straight into the dirt. Turn around, there's fireworks going off. I'm like, what the hell? I thought my car broke. So I started complaining. I'm like, hey man, that's not cool. You guys didn't tell us that there was going to be fireworks on entry, because they weren't doing that during practice. They weren't doing that during qualifying. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, they're going to shoot fireworks, and I happened to be the first one out there. So it threw me off guard, and I ended up losing that round. And I think it was against Eric Jacobs or something.
Yeah.
Oh, they didn't give it to you?
Wow, you remember that.
Oh,
no, they didn't give it to him. I remember your crew and you guys were pleading your case, and they weren't having it. And I felt so bad.
I was there with the crowd, and actually people were laughing. Nobody expected those fireworks because it was trackside fireworks. It wasn't just like a display on the side. It was along the track.
Right next to
there.
Yeah, you could have taken them out.
That was crazy.
And I think you weren't in dirt. I think you went into the rocks. Were you in the rocks?
I went into the gravel trap.
Yeah, the gravel trap.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
That's fun.
Too. Oh yeah, Benson knows all about that one.
No, I know nothing about that gravel trap. So, but I was knocked out. I was knocked out top 16 also, but that was my favorite Formula D experience, getting knocked out there, because the crowd was so nice. And I don't know, I don't think you were doing it too, but so we got knocked out, and we were just standing around because they didn't let us back to the pit, right? So we were just standing around in the grid, didn't know what to do. And some of the fans were in the stands, but the way Formula D Atlanta was, they had people, they allowed them to drive up in their pickup trucks and kind of like at a football game where you just tailgate and party. All those guys were up there,
right?
Yeah,
on the side of the mountain.
Yeah. I remember I was there, had nothing to do, and those guys were so nice, and they're all like, "Hey, jump the fence, come hang out with us." And so I was like, "All right, cool." So I don't remember you, but I definitely remember Alex Pfeiffer and we jumped the fence and sat on some tailgates, and we're drinking beers and stuff, and it was a party. Instead of being sad, I was out there partying. And then to add to the story, the Formula D didn't tell us this, but there was a break, I think, between maybe top 8 and top 4, and they had us do a demo. All the people that got cut, they let us do a demo. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. No.
Okay,
I must have been so pissed.
Ken was still pissed.
Yeah. Okay.
I would have.
Yeah. I was happy you were pissed, but I was drunk, And they're like, come do a demo. And I was like, hell yeah. So I jumped the fence. I was doing a demo drunk. It was like the best time for me.
Drunk drifting.
Oh, man.
You heard it here first. Oh my
Well,
gosh.
yeah, you mentioned that Southern hospitality, but that still hasn't changed till this day. And I think Road Atlanta still, till this day, has the best fans in Formula Drift.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I specifically remember their fans. They were great.
Benson loves Road Atlanta because this was the first time his fans came with signs that said Benson in Sileightymania. And I remember that. And I go, are you kidding me? Like, and they had his name on posters, and it was
Yeah.
so sweet and so adorable. And it was new to us. So it was like, you wrote his name on a poster and you came to watch Benson? Like, oh my gosh.
Oh man,
Oh.
those are the days. I bet you
Yeah.
there's still some fans that was there on that day that still go there till this day.
I talked to some of them online, and they tell me they were there at that event. And Atlanta's great. I love the fans there.
Yeah.
They're my favorite by far.
Shout out Atlanta, the ATL. So you guys are asking such like really sweet questions and very like innocent, but I'm here
Dun dun dun.
to shake it up. Okay, Ken? Ken just chugged a beer right now.
Yeah, I'm ready.
You got to
I'm
prepare.
ready.
You need some shots.
All right.
Liquid courage.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate. You know, this is not my personal opinion, but some say going pro is selling out. Has anyone ever said that to you, Ken? And like, have you thought about that?
I remember when the internet or when drifting first got big was also when like the internet forums and whatnot were getting big, like drifting.com.
I just remember drifting.com was really harsh. Yeah.
And then there was
Yeah.
like people that would say like, oh, he's a sellout for going mainstream and whatnot. But I think at the end of the day, I still enjoyed doing what I was doing, so I never really let it bother me. And of course, there were times where I would read very harsh comments like, oh, he sucks. Like, how did he get a deal with Ford, or how did he get a deal with, Toyota and whatnot? And like, they would say like stuff like, oh, he's very undeserving of a C. But
Jeez.
I never really cared. Like, they can say whatever the hell they want because I'm the one here doing what they would
That's right.
wish they were doing.
Mm.
And the way I see it is like, just because I'm a professional getting paid to do what I do doesn't mean that I can't enjoy the grassroots side of the world, right? Like, till this day, I tell people like, all of us pros, like, we can go grassroots anytime we want, we can go grassroots, right? Like, I can enjoy both worlds, and I do.
And you do.
I feel like
Yeah, I
you're one
do.
of the very few that do. And we like that. Like, I love
Yeah.
seeing that you actually take the time. Like, you go drive your pro events, but I see you
Mhm.
do a lot of grassroots stuff. And
I think it's because like I genuinely just enjoy drifting. Like, I don't care if it's on a pro level or if it's on a grassroots level. Like, I just
yeah.
enjoy it, not just the driving, but the
It's,
community.
it's very different too, right? The way you drive a pro level car versus driving a grassroots style car. I don't imagine to understand what it's like to drive your Supra, right? But I'm sure you have to readjust your approach to driving, right?
Yeah, in a sense, but so there's one way I look at it when I set up my cars. It's the ease of driving it, like how easy it is, how predictable it is. And that doesn't change from going from a 200 horsepower street car to a 1,000 horsepower pro car. As long as it's easy to drive, I think the approach is going to be the same. Of course, the 1,000 horsepower Supra, like, things come at you way faster because you're
Yeah.
going twice, sometimes 3 times the speed. But I mean, they both have their challenges and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's fun, both fun.
I think that's easy for you to say, like, I make this 1,000 horsepower Supra easy for me to drive. And I don't think that's easy for everyone to drive.
But he's having
Oh,
fun
yeah.
doing it, babe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it makes it easy.
I think that's awesome. And to add to Nadine's comments is, I see you a lot at grassroots events, driving with everybody. And you're not there like on a pedestal, like you don't enter the room and like people are carrying you on a throne. Like you're just you're just Ken Gushi from the SGV, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing that you do that. And
Thanks.
you don't feel like you're a certain way just because you're on like a celebrity's podcast the other day, or you're
No.
you know, like that's not you. You're so down to earth, and I appreciate that after all these years, after all the accomplishments that you've made,
Thanks.
and there is same old Ken.
Yeah.
I love that.
Hasn't gone to his head. So here's my one other heavy hitter question. So when we were driving Formula Drift, Benson and I, we were there with you, and we're all kind of struggling to get transport to events and get support to pay for our hotels and, all the stuff that goes in with pro driving. And so you've since gotten a lot of great sponsorships, and now you drive with Toyota and you drove for Ford. How did you get those gigs? Did you have to get an agent? Did you just know people? Did people come up to you and offer? Like, how did you make that transition to drive for a factory back company?
Was it because of your looks?
Definitely not my looks.
Hey,
Definitely.
I've seen you in a modeling photo, Ken.
Oh,
Yes.
We've all seen that, so you can't deny that so quickly.
Photoshop. Well, to answer your question, Eddie, I was very, very fortunate to be around people who were willing to make those moves for me. And of course, starting off as a naive teenager, I, of course, didn't have those connections or networks to make that sort of stuff happen. So it was just being lucky that I knew the people and still do know the people that were willing to, make moves on behalf of me to make that happen. For the Ford racing gig, it was knowing Reese Millen. You guys all know Reese.
Yeah.
But he was at the time driving for Pontiac. And because he's so heavily connected to the stunt driving community, he knew people at Ford that were approaching him asking if, how is the drifting community? Like, how do we get in? Do you know anyone that would be willing to drive for us? So he was actually the one that got me the connection to Ford Motorsports or Ford Motor Corporation.
Wow.
Yeah,
Shout out.
it's a very crazy story. But when he first approached me, I was like, no way. Like, it's an all-American company. Like, why would they want to hire a 17-year-old Japanese kid to drive their brand new Mustang? But then it really happened. Like, it was like a true story. And had I not known the right people then, like, there was no way any of this would have happened. And it wasn't me. Like, I really didn't do anything. Like, I never wrote a single proposal to a manufacturer saying, hey, my name is Ken Gushi, this is what I do. Like, I was just always lucky to have people put me in that position where I was able to make those connections.
That's great.
Yeah.
So tell me, so did Ford offer you money? They're going to pay you to drive, or was it just the car? Or like, I'm asking these crazy like questions that I don't expect you to answer, but I'm asking.
No. When I first started, I wasn't getting paid at all. When I first started with Rotora, I wasn't getting paid. Even with Ford, I wasn't getting paid. The team was getting paid to, develop the chassis, the platform, and then pay for some of the expenses logistically for, participating in Formula Drift. But I was not getting paid at all. I don't think I got a single dime the whole time I was with Ford Racing from Ford Motor Company. The checks that I was getting was either prize money or contingency money from Toyo Tires.
Got it.
Can you talk about your season with Ford? I don't know that a lot of people know about it because it was so long ago, but
Yeah, my partnership with Ford started in 2005. I lasted 3 seasons till 2007. The first season, we got third place in the championships in 2005 with a brand new car. The second season, we debuted a entirely brand new build. It was the same S197 chassis Ford Mustang, but a whole new build, like rear mount radiator, 4.6 illuminator aluminum block V8, had about 800 horsepower, supercharged. Sounded crazy. And then with that vehicle, I actually struggled a little bit, so I couldn't even make it into the top 5 in 2006. In 2007, I ended up totaling that said vehicle at New Jersey. And it was like probably the most slow speed, ridiculous accident that ended up splitting the front frame rails and totaling out the vehicle. But I had to finish off that season in our first car from 2005. And at the end of the contract was when they were like, oh, like, we want to continue to support you, but we can't really fund the project. So you're going to have to go back to the first car and somehow find the money to fix it. At the same time was when Scion was approaching RSR, the suspension company, to possibly start a new drift team with a Scion TC that's been converted to a rear-wheel drive. So, thanks to Ford and whatnot, but instead of continuing with that program, I had decided to take on a new challenge and go with Scion Racing to start a new venture.
And that was so perfect for you. I was so happy that you had that relationship with Scion at that point because, for people that don't know, Scion was kind of Toyota's youth brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, that's Ken. Like Ken is should be the face of Scion. And when they gave you that car to drive, and I remember they used you in advertisements, and I was like, that is a match made in heaven.
They did, yeah. I mean, well, thanks for your kind words. But when they first approached me, I was like, man, this is perfect. Because for one, like you said, it was a brand that was targeting youth to introduce them into the Toyota umbrella. So they would start off with, these affordable, cool, sleek, like lifestyle brand called Scion, eventually move them into Toyota and then hopefully ultimately Lexus. But that was what Scion was all about, was the youth and the lifestyle. So they did use me in a lot of their advertisements. I did a lot of their shoots for especially the new 86 or the FRS at the time. But yeah, that was the starting of a long 12-year relationship that I'm still continuing to have with Toyota Motor Corporation.
That's so cool. I think especially since you have a SAG card and you do some stunt driving. And I know from talking to people like Reese Mill in the past that one of the reasons why Reese was so in demand, I don't know if he still is, but it's because he kind of has that look that they're looking for, where you can kind of fade in the background, that they can show his face, but he kind of just looks like a normal white guy that like most of America can relate to. So the fact that you're able to be a stunt driver as an Asian American, like that's so cool to me. That shows me that culture is changing, times are changing, and that we
actually, no, let's go back.
Oh, okay.
It's tough, actually. So yeah, I do have a SAG card, and when I first, decided to invest into the union, I was hoping I would get a lot more gigs, but that wasn't the case. And with stunt driving in general, that community is so tight and so protected because work is so scarce. They don't want the work to go outside of that circle that they have. Of course, Reese, Sam Hubinet, Tanner Faust, even Matt Powers, they're all part of that circle. And unfortunately, like you mentioned, it's a bunch of, like Americans. There's not a single Asian American or Asian person you'll see in most stunt driving commercials. You'll see them as talent, as like, the face of the commercial. But you'll rarely see an Asian stunt driver that they openly portray on the same commercials.
So those boys didn't let you in their circle?
They did, actually. It's not under their control. Whenever they can't make a certain shoot, they will
refer someone.
They will, yeah, they will refer someone. And, I've been lucky enough to have guys like Reese and Sam both refer me to shoots that didn't show my face. So it didn't really matter what race they were. But for the most part, most commercials, it's kind of like a protected job. Like they don't want the jobs outsourced to anyone else because it pays so well, for one. And two, like they want to protect those jobs within that circle of drivers.
So what did you get to drive?
Oh, well, I've done a few commercials. I've done a commercial with Nissan and their Cube when it was new. I've done Jaguar's XF-RS. I've done their F-Type. I've done their... Well, actually, I've done a few for Jaguar. I've done their F-Type R.
Have you ever had to do like a slow, lame car?
The Cube.
Like, make this Cube look awesome, Ken.
You're like, great. It's my first gig.
No, it wasn't like that. It was like, okay, Ken, go back to one. And I would like, reverse.
Yeah.
Okay, and action. I would just pull into a parking spot.
Yeah.
No.
Like
Really?
10 times over. Like, how many different angles can you get of this
Wait,
motion?
what?
You
They
know?
hired you for
Yeah.
that?
You know,
Yeah.
I
We
was
did.
I was offered a stunt driving gig one time from my friend who was in the film industry. I was like, "Oh, awesome. I can't wait to like drift whatever car." And I was stupid enough to I think I had a contact. I don't know if it was the producer or whoever it was doing that gig. I was like, "Oh, what kind of car is it?" And he said it was, I don't know, just make something up, like a Toyota Camry. I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, can you replace it with, something rear wheel drive? I can do something really cool in rear wheel drive." And then he stopped replying to me. So I lost that one. And I think it's because of my dumb email.
So
Oh boy.
you still do it, right? Like you do it sometimes, just not regular enough.
Yeah, definitely not regular enough, but I haven't had a stunt driving gig. And when was the last one I did? I think it's been like 2 years ago.
Is that something that you can actively look out, like
Um,
search for gigs, or they have to just kind of fall in your lap?
yeah. All my jobs have sort of just been falling on my lap, either like
Okay.
referred or the producers knew me from an old shoot, so they would refer me again
Yeah.
or like recommend me to or push me for another shoot. But I do have one coming up.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Who is it? Can you
top
talk about
secret?
it?
Um, I could talk about the manufacturer, but I can't talk about the car yet. Yeah.
Okay.
So, it's a
Well,
Toyota
Oh,
branded vehicle, but
big
nice.
surprise. Big surprise.
Yeah.
big
Um,
surprise coming.
So interesting fact, since we're talking about your SAG card, because of that film industry stuff, you have an IMDb profile. An interesting fact, Nadine and I and you, we all have IMDb profiles.
Wait, I have one?
Yeah,
Oh,
you don't
no
even
way.
care. You're like so famous
know.
that
No,
I
no, no,
have
no, no. I
one.
didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't
you know
know.
you have a Wikipedia page too, right?
Yeah, but Wikipedia, like anyone can make one, and
No.
it's all
I
like
mean, they take
user
it down.
submitted
No,
profiles.
but
I
they,
used to have
Really?
one.
Yeah.
Then I lost my street cred and they took it down.
yeah.
Oh,
You got to appreciate what you
I
have,
can add to
Ken.
that. I never really trusted Wikipedia.
Yeah,
I know.
I know.
Yeah.
Doing some research for your interview, I looked up your Wikipedia page, and then there was, they talked about your dad real quick, like,
Mhm,
son of Tsukasa Gushi, and
mhm.
I was like, oh, it's clickable. So I was like, I wonder what it is, and I clicked on it, and I had no idea that he's like a martial artist.
Yeah.
He's on there doing like kata with no shirt on. I was like, oh, okay,
Hey.
So,
okay.
my grandpa was actually a martial arts master. And
Ah,
then my
Oh.
dad was obviously his student, but then he became a master himself. And then when I was like 8 or 9, I was doing it too. Like I was doing martial arts and I hated it. Like I completely hated it.
Oh.
Like when my grandpa was teaching classes, because he would teach in his backyard, in our backyard,
yeah.
and they would make me do like kata. I was like, I don't want to do this.
I can totally see you saying that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I hated it. But now that I look back, I wish that I was more into it. Only because it's like, that style of martial arts is kind of a dying breed, and like I wish I was able to do something with it. But yeah.
So I have another deep question for you.
Uh-oh.
Uh-huh.
Are you ready?
Yeah, but I do want to go back to the Wikipedia thing real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh,
Let's
man.
hear it.
Yeah, so the reason why I don't trust Wikipedia is because one time I did manage to read on what they wrote about me. And because it was like user submitted,
Yeah.
like data, someone put like, oh, weak sauce drifter from San Gabriel Valley drifting a Nissan Versa
Oh.
or something. I was like, what the hell? I don't drive a
Oh.
Nissan Versa. So then that turned me off from Wikipedia. And then ever since, I never really trusted it.
That's what I think people don't understand, that you can't just trust it because it's on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So thank you for that lesson, Ken. Don't trust everything you read.
Yeah, especially the internet.
Okay. So my deep question is there a standout moment in your drifting career? And we'll go past just professional career, but like all of it, right? Is there a standout moment in your drifting career that is maybe your favorite?
Yeah, I mean, my most memorable event to date is 2004. I think it was 2004 when they had the Yokohama Tire International Drift Shootout at Laguna Seca.
Ooh.
Yep.
And Hayashida was the Hayashida?
Yep. You took him out.
Yeah, I took him out. Yeah. Anyway, I won that event,
Like a
and it was like
punk.
a $10,000.
Just kidding.
No, you're not.
No,
It was
no,
like
but
a $10,000
you can't
drift
just
shootout or something.
you can't just mention Hayashida because you also took out Reese Millen and Samuel
Yeah.
Hubinet.
Yeah.
And that was huge back then because those guys, Reese and Samuel, they were in like cars with V8s, grip monsters.
They were pros before drifting.
They were pros already.
Yeah.
They've been pros already. And they knew how to take the inside line and push all these lower cars, like less engineered cars, out of the way. And you'd beat them. And at that time, that was insane. No one, I don't think when you won that, I don't think anyone's beat both of them in a single round. They might lose one round of Formula D here and there, but like usually those guys were winning first and second.
Mm-hmm.
So that was huge.
That was huge to me, and till this day, I remember that as like one of my biggest moments in my career, and it happened so early on in my career too.
Yeah,
But it's just had that much of an impact on me that that's left me talking about it till this day.
hey, if you didn't win that, maybe Reese wouldn't have given your name to Ford Racing.
Yeah, maybe that was the event that led me to Ford.
Yeah,
Who knows?
But that was the biggest cash prize ever, right?
$10,000.
It was for one event. Even Formula D doesn't pay that much
What did you do with it?
for one event.
Bought lottery tickets?
Well, okay, now it gets sour.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, I didn't hear
So
this.
that money I didn't get to keep. It went to Rotora.
That's
and
right.
We didn't see
Yep.
any of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
That
yep.
actually was kind of what made us fall apart.
Yeah, I remember that. I forgot.
Tell me about that. What happened?
Oh, well, after winning that event, there was no single like celebration. There was no like anything, which I don't care. Now at least I don't care. But maybe at the time I was a little bit like sour about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some appreciation
And,
would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my dad obviously saw the frustration and how kind of disappointed I was. So like it was kind of like our decision to just leave the team and start our own team representing Gushi Auto Repair.
Nice.
But now at the same time, my dad felt so bad that he decided to pull out 10 grand from his own account and gift it to me. So that was
Your
very
dad's
nice of him.
awesome.
Jeez.
Yeah, he's very
Your dad,
awesome.
lots of love from Sukasha.
Wow.
Aw.
Yeah.
So when you said 2004, Ken, I was hoping, I had my fingers crossed that you were going to talk about the RSR Drift event in Chicago, where you, me, and Dai were all on the podium together.
Yeah,
But-
yeah.
But hey, $10,000 is way cooler than that.
No, but that was a big money event too, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a big money event. I don't think I got any money for that.
Yeah, you did.
Benson got money.
Yeah,
you
you
got
did.
money.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I got.
I just remember getting a gigantic trophy.
I think I
still
got
have.
Benson's trophy's
$5
like
grand.
12.
Yeah, it's a tiny trophy, but it's my favorite one because I was on the podium with you guys. But yeah, I think I got like
I think it was
4,000, 5,000.
Yeah, it's close to
Really?
5.
Yeah, you
5K.
got
I
money.
don't remember.
Shoot.
Yeah, Ken's like, oh, well, it's not 10 grand.
Yeah.
So
It's whatever.
That event, I remember, like after the finish line, there was like a fence.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
every time after I crossed the finish line, I would try to like drift as sideways as I can, clearing that fence.
Yep. And at
Yeah, that was
at the
so fun.
your celebration, when they announced you as the winner and they let you like go
Yeah.
celebrate, you almost wrecked your car. You remember that? You spun out and you almost like totally
I
backed in the
did.
yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I think I broke my car.
oh.
Yeah, I think that's when my car broke and I had to get out of the car.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
My car was broken. I think I had no second gear the whole time or something.
You were driving the yellow one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Good times, guys.
That was fun.
Yeah, good times.
That
That was Chicago, right?
That was Chicago, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask, because I know that because you are a Japanese speaker, your experience with like some of our heroes coming over from Japan was a little different than the rest of us, right? Because you could communicate with them. People like Koguchi, right? When he would come, I know you hung out with Koguchi a lot.
hmm
Can you tell us what that was like? Because for the rest of us, we cannot fathom hanging out with Koguchi. That's insane. Tell us what that was like. Tell us like what his personality is like. I know you've told me like some of the weird things that he would do. Can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, as a native speaker, it was easier for me to communicate with them. And to my surprise, they were actually super chill, down to earth, like level-headed, and they didn't boast themselves as
Right.
like superior to any of us, and they genuinely enjoyed the growing car community in the States. Now I remember this one picture I have of all of us at Fisherman's Wharf.
Mm-hmm.
It was just nice because, prior to that, we would only see them on VHS tapes, option videos, Drift Tengoku.
And
watching them
Koguchi
slide.
was always looking cool. Like no matter what he was doing, he was like smoking a cigarette and like posing. Like,
Yeah,
was that normal?
but
Did he always do
no,
that?
no, but in person, he's like, comedian. Like he was just always like
Really?
being silly and like loves alcohol,
Yeah.
being drunk. Seigo, on the other hand, was the cool guy. He was the one that always like portrayed himself as like, oh, I'm too cool for you guys.
Yeah.
But I mean, deep down, he was like cool, okay, very nice. But he always had that image of like, oh, I'm like badass Japanese drifter driving a JZX 100 Chaser.
Yeah.
I guess that's a turning point too, like seeing these heroes of ours, only in tapes and videos, and then like being able to actually physically hang out with them,
Right.
talk drifting, drive with them. That's kind of how I wanted to be. And I think that's kind of what's kept me the way I am. Like, even if, we're like the superstars of drifting, like normal people are also just as enthusiastic about drifting as we are, or even once were. So it's pretty important to me to stay, I guess, level-headed.
Yeah.
And not like you said earlier, like being put on a pedestal and looking down on everyone else.
I think,
but it's because of those guys for sure.
I think that when you are approachable, you make yourself approachable. That's the most inspiring to people because they can see that can be them.
Right. Yeah.
Like if no one can come talk to you and hang out with you or get a ride with you or, drive with you, they're going to feel like to get there is so hard. Like I have to be someone special or out of this world to be that. But when you portray yourself as just who you are, like you're just a normal guy, right? I mean, not to downplay you because I think you're great, but
I'm normal. I'm just average.
But yeah, like that inspires the next generation.
Yeah, so, I hope so. I really hope so.
So I have some questions that I like to ask all of my guests.
Okay.
So the first one is, do you remember the exact moment you fell in love with drifting?
I do.
Let's hear it.
This was when going back to the story of my dad taking me to El Mirage dry lake bed. But prior to that, my very, very, very first drifting experience was in the passenger seat of his Corolla. We were actually at Mitsuwa and Torrance. And behind Mitsuwa, there's this one street where there's like a street. It's not a dead end street, but it's like an industrial area.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the ground was half wet. And he was like, hold on real quick. I'm like, huh? And he like drifted the corner out of nowhere. I was like, oh my God, that was the coolest thing ever. And I got like super excited. That was just the first time. Like he was just like, hold on real quick. And then like pushed the car sideways.
You know what that reminds me of? You know those drug commercials from the 80s where, the dad is getting mad at the son for doing drugs. He's like, where'd you learn this from? And then the kid's like, I learned it from you, Dad.
I wouldn't know because I was a little baby.
Yeah. No, but
that old commercial.
Yeah, I just dated myself. But yeah, you learned that from your dad. You can't get mad at you.
Is that the same street from 240SX?
Yep,
I bet it is.
Oh my gosh, Ken. We had so many memories around that street because that's like the first time that Benson and I met and Mark met. Yeah, Benson, me, and Mark met at a 240SX owners meeting. Like there.
On that side street at Mitsuwa.
Yeah. So I think that street's magic.
Yeah. It's
started a lot of good
the
stuff.
best thing of my life.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Okay. My next question is, when we all got into cars at an early age, we didn't know much about cars yet, or how to work on them properly. Is there something dumb that you did on your car because you weren't really experienced with working on cars yet?
Well, there's one mod that I could clearly remember, and it was one of my dad's employees from Gushi Auto. He said, "Do you want your blinkers to turn really fast, like rapid flash? All you have to do is cut a ground off the wire." I was like, "Oh, really?" So I ended up doing that. And at the time, I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I like this," but when you do that, you turn on your turn signal, it's like,
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Everyone
the
knew.
thing.
Everyone knew you
Yeah.
knew about car, or you were into cars if they saw the fast blinkers.
I thought it was cool, but my dad was like, "What the f did you do? Now I have to fix that wire." So he had to like solder the wire, tape it. I was like, "Don't ever do that again." So yeah, that was probably one of the stupidest things I've ever done.
As us dumb import racers got smarter and more experienced, someone told me that you could just kind of unplug the light bulb just a little bit, and it'll sense kind of like a short, and it would do it. So you would still have functioning turn signals. But anyway, that's whatever.
We should try it.
Yeah, let's bring that back.
Oh man, I've also cut stock springs on a Toyota Cressida and
Ooh, how much
had
did
the
you cut?
worst.
How much did you cut, Ken? Did you cut
enough
half
to be-
like Nadine?
Did she cut half?
She
Really?
cut
I was writing
half.
bump stuff.
Oh, she was
Oh.
riding bump stops too.
Oh,
No,
Oh,
but
God.
but
See?
Nadine,
See?
no,
Ken's
Ken,
not bad.
no, Ken.
Nope.
Nadine went a step worse than that because she's like, I'm hitting bump stops. So then she cut her bump stops.
I did. I did. I actually did cut those in
Yikes.
half. In half.
Yeah, that's how we
Such
hurt
a
your
racer.
tailbone.
That's what you do. That's what you do, though. Like half.
Well, I have a spring. I have a spring at all.
I know Ohara Ken from Alto was like, just take your springs out. You don't need it.
He
It's
would
like,
say that.
Yeah, he was
It was
Bosozoku
crazy.
back in
Yeah.
Japan. But let's see. I'll ask one more. Who is an inspirational person to you when it came to your involvement with cars or drifting?
The most inspirational figure would have to be my dad. I mean, as far as I can remember back, I was always following him around the house garage, and they even bought me this like kid-size one-piece jumpsuit so I could like pretend to be like a mechanic. And I clearly remember like following him around with like wrenches and pliers, just hoping for him to ask me to get something for him. And yeah, that's pretty much all I knew growing up. So I just wanted to be something that he was doing. Like I wanted to follow his footsteps, and here I am. I mean, I'm doing bigger things than he ever did, and I'm sure he's proud of where I am today. But if it wasn't for him, I definitely would not be where I am today, and I definitely wouldn't have met you guys. So
Oh,
it's crazy
yes.
how things just happen.
I love it. It's beautiful. Oh, thank you, Ken. This has been so great. This walk down memory lane and man, I learned a lot of new stuff about Ken. Naughty boy. I didn't count how many cop experiences you had. You're so bad.
Yeah,
This is great. But thank
So
you so
kids
much,
don't
Ken.
do that.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you guys.
These
Yeah.
are this is Ken did it so you guys don't do it, like
Exactly.
yeah.
I was the example of what not to do.
Yes.
So if you
Well-
want to take your girls out on dates, don't do any illegal street drifting.
Oh, enough said.
Thank you so much, Ken, for doing this interview with us. I know you're busy. You've got a Formula D car to build. I mean, you don't have that much time left. So I appreciate you taking some time out, reminiscing with us. And I think that's my favorite thing about this podcast is, when we hang out, we don't do this. We don't reminisce and go over all these old memories and stuff. And it gives me a chance to do that. And it allows me to record it so your future kids and your grandkids can hear, what Grandpa Gushi was like. And I'm really appreciative of what you've done for the culture.
Thank you.
The fact that you've done it for so long and you're the same Ken. You're happy-go-lucky Ken. You're always down for whatever. And you're approachable. And I know that a lot of people look up to you, even though, like some people might think you're celebrity status, and you probably are, but it never seems that way. and you're
appreciate that.
you're a longtime friend who never seems to let time get in the way. Years can go by without us talking, and when we do, we're always those same old friends that we've always been. And I can't say that about everyone, so I really appreciate that
Thank you,
our
Vincent.
relationship.
That's nice.
And yeah, and I'm excited for your future. I'm glad that you keep doing what you love every day, and you don't give up, and you have fun with it. So, in closing, thank you. Please send our love to your dad and Mommy Gushi and
Yep.
Hikaru and Boba, please.
I will. Yeah, no, thanks for the opportunity. It was definitely a great time catching up and reminiscing about the past.
Yeah. All right, Ken. Well, thank you so much for being our second guest on this season of the Sileightymania podcast. And everybody, if you're not already following Ken, which I'm sure you are because he's just, the famous Ken Gushi, you can follow Ken on Instagram at Ken Gushi and his website, kgmsports.com. And please follow us on Instagram at Sileightymania and visit our website, podcast.sileightymania.com. This recording will be on YouTube as well, along with some fun video footage of the past. And so we're going to put Ken's videos up there in our videos and photos and things like that. So make sure to listen on YouTube as well. And guys, thank you so much for listening. Please leave a message on our hotline. Leave us your questions or comments and tell us about the first time you fell in love with drifting. Leave your message at 323-607-6075, 323-607-6075. And everyone, we will see you in the next one.